broadcasting live.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Welcome and good morning to everybody that's attendance in this meeting. The meeting is being conducted by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended and the Town of Mono Procedure Bylaw 2020-42. Unfortunately, Council Chambers is not open to the public at this time. This meeting can be viewed live on the Mono Civic Web portal, and we have also changed our process where residents can join into the meeting and ask questions during the public question period. At this time, I want to confirm that we do have quorum. We've got prior notice from Councillor Magdalo that he will not be attending this morning. The meeting is being video recorded and the proceedings are being broadcast. Reminding members of council that disclosure of pecuniary interest can be made now or at any time throughout the meeting. Councillor Martin has offered to do the land acknowledgement agreement.
We would like, excuse me. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territories and ancestral lands of the Tetonatihi, the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Miigwech.
Thank you, Sharon. Item number 1, the approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover that council approves the agenda of session 14-2021 as circulated? Moved by Nix and seconded by Creelman. Is there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? And seeing none, that's carried. On to the minutes of our previous meeting of session 13-2021 as circulated. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And there are no proclamations today. Now we're on to public question period. Mr. Simpson.
We have 3 questions, Your Worship, that were submitted in advance. The first question from Carlos Fiera, and he would like to know if there are any plans to have city sewage system piping coming to Orchard Drive.
Your Worship, if I may?
Yeah.
So Orchard Drive is not in the vicinity of any of the town's wastewater treatment infrastructure, and there's no current long-term plans for this to occur. So individual septic systems will be required to be maintained long-term by the residents.
And I don't remember any discussion on anything beyond what we've currently had in place. Mr. Early, do you have any strategic plans for council's consideration in terms of, is this something that we need to consider in the long-term future?
The subdivision was originally designed in the late 80s. I was actually with the engineering firm at the time. And it's never had any plans for being connected to the Orangeville system, nor is the communal system to the south been designed to handle sewage coming out of that subdivision. So I think from a strategic perspective, no, it's never ever been considered hooking up Cardinal Woods to anything more than the private septic systems that they're on now. That was the design in the official plan, and that was the design of the secondary plan that occurred after the official plan in the early 80s.
Okay, so if there was consideration, would it have to go through the official plan to make any of these adjustments?
Ooh, yes, official plan, environmental assessments, probably.
Yeah. Okay, so if council is in agreement, we should communicate back to Carlos that that is the status at this time. And if he needs to know anything further, he can always contact us again. And so now question 2, Mr. Simpson.
So the second question comes from Carol Terinayak. She would like to, let me just read it straight out. I know you are all wrestling with the issues of parking around Mono Cliffs. I have walked the park since I moved to this area 16 years ago. Now I can't because I have to drive from the 10th Side Road, but I can't park. Don't even try on the weekends. Why don't you give Mono residents who pay taxes to maintain the roads a parking pass so we can park on the road, and yet those outside of Mono cannot?
Okay, and I know that because of what we're considering under the first item on unfinished business, or second item on unfinished business, we'll be discussing those particular issues regarding parking passes, and we could respond back to Carol that once we've had that discussion, as depending on what the council's decision is, we could possibly expand that opportunity to residents from Mono, but that needs to be put on the table first. Anybody else have any comments on that? Mark?
I guess, Your Worship, the other side of the coin now is the fact that the parks are requiring permits for the day use as well. So that's another consideration.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so question 3.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Yes.
On the question 2, I've had a resident also phone me from the 5th line with almost the identical problem. She's walked that park for quite a few years, and now she can't get in. She does get in during the week, and she pays the parking fee at 3rd line. But in talking to her, I'm troubled by one aspect of this, and this is not the same as Blue Heron Drive. There's an assumption by some Mono residents, maybe including myself, that it is our park, and therefore we should have some privileges that non-residents don't. I'm a bit bothered by that, because that's a provincial park. And it's not clear in my mind that Mono residents have any more right to access that park than anyone else in the province. I just want to put that on the table, okay, that I'm a bit troubled by this.
Yeah. Good point. Yes, John?
Sorry about that. One suggestion that has been made and discussed with Parks Ontario is a loosely organized entity, what we could call Friends of Mono Cliffs Park, and that would be primarily geared towards local residents who, in return for committing to do litter pickup, as an example, might get a free pass insofar as parking is concerned. And I think that is worth pursuing because I think it would take care of the concerns of many of these individuals who consider it their park because they've been the stewards of the park for so many years. So they're using a figure of speech, but I think it speaks to their dedication to maintaining the beauty of the park. So I'm happy to advance that at a Parks Committee meeting, which I believe we have one this week.
Okay. So we will continue on with question 3.
So question 3 comes from Mr. Kisser, who states, given the volume of out-of-town visitors to Island Lake Family Park, that it is, what is the town proposing to stop? 1, street parking on First Line and the east end of Blue Heron, and 2, stop CVC trail parking within lot, which is taking away playground parking.
Okay, anyone have any comments on that? Sharon?
Well, I'll speak to the Blue Heron thing when that comes around. I don't have any magic bullet for the parking either, except of course that it is, all of this is such a terrible nuisance to our residents, I think, and that's whose side we're on, right? I don't care where other people come from. If they do it properly and go to the gate and pay for their parking and go into the Island Lake Park, I think that's wonderful. Somehow we need to get off the mapping that shows these entrances to the park in general. I mean, the one right on Hockley says community right on it. And if you live in Oakville, you are not our community. And yeah, I have no idea. I feel so badly for all these people who are being inundated with, and they're cheating in many ways. I mean, you're coming from somewhere else and you're not paying to park, to go into to the park. I would say we're caught here again. We have to have no parking signs along there, and we have to be strict about it. That's all there is to it. And has our parking ticket gone up to $90 yet, or is that still in the works?
Fred Simpson?
So it is officially $90, but we don't have new tickets yet in the field being used.
Okay, but that's coming.
Yes, it is.
Okay. No, I have no magic bullet. I find it terribly annoying for all these people. Every time I go over there and see, I'm adding to the traffic, but every time I see these cars parked from far away, it really does irritate me. That's it.
Okay, thanks. John?
I was going to raise this in the when it comes time to talk about Blue Heron parking, but I think we need to do signage both at the Island Lake Family Park parking lot, something to the effect that, and this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to try this wording on for size: residents parking only, no access to Island Lake. Please use official entrance from Huron, Ontario Street. And I know there is an ability to get into Island Lake, but I think that should be the message that we're putting out there. Residents parking only. And as for the entrance off Blue Heron, I think it should be signed as follows: residents entrance only. Visitors use official entrance from Huron, Ontario Street. So that's going to be my contribution to the discussion. I think the signage is absolutely critical. It could be that people don't pay attention to it, but enough people will to make it worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, again, we'll have this discussion and then be able to send a response back out to Doug as to what our next steps are. And so that's it. Oh, yes, Mark?
Just to caution, Your Worship, as you're aware, the town is awaiting confirmation of funding from the province and the feds regarding our park plans in there. So there may also be construction going on through there through the late summer if we get confirmation of that funding, which is going to further complicate matters. And if you were considering no parking along First Line, you may be cutting out any parking for any residents in there if we have to close that park for construction. So I just throw that out as a caution because until we hear from funding or on our funding, I think we're kind of up in the air on that right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Mr. Simpson, no more questions in advance. Do we have anybody signed in that would like to pose a question? Don't see anybody. Fred Simpson, do you see anybody?
No, I don't see anyone who I'm not anticipating discussing a specific matter on the agenda.
Okay, so we will carry on then with unfinished business as there's no delegations. So the first item is the list of unfinished and deferred council business. That was part of your package. Any comments on this list? Yes, Fred Nix? Your mic?
Sorry, am I on now?
Yep.
I'm wondering if we should add one item. As you know, under the Clean Water Act and Source Water Protection Plan, we were to have a joint water management agreement with Orangeville, Amaranth, and East Garifraxa by 2018. We haven't done that. I'm not really sure it's our obligation to do it. I mean, the plan says we're obliged to enter into this joint agreement. Mark and I did respond to what I thought was a draft agreement from the Credit Valley. That's not my phone. And then I had understood that we had passed both what I thought was a draft and the report that Mark and I wrote off to the Deputy Mayor of Amaranth. So just to remind us that this is still hanging over our heads, should we add this to the unfinished business list and maybe put down Chris's name as the person responsible? At least I think he is. Mark, I'll defer to you on that, but I don't want us to forget this, okay? We are supposed to have an agreement.
Fred's quite right. It is in the hands of Chris at Amaranth. He did volunteer to take that on, and a meeting has not been scheduled, nor have I seen a request. So,
So we'll add that to the list then. So just so it keeps it in our forefront. Yes, John?
I just want to say I'm happy to see the large residential homes motion in this list with an expected due date of the 20th of July. Is Dave online? I don't see him here.
Yep.
yeah, he was.
Just two quick questions for Dave. Number one, is that your anticipated delivery date for a report to council? And then it goes off to planning committee for consideration? Or does it go to planning committee with a report back from that entity on July 20th?
We'll have to, yes, Mark.
Yeah, not sure where Dave got to. We did discuss this last week, Deputy Mayor, and the thinking was that a draft bylaw would be coming back to council, as this was council initiated, and then it would proceed through our standard planning process and notification. We weren't going to do pre-notification for public meetings until council had an opportunity to review it.
Okay, that's great. The second question for Dave, if I can, part of that motion indicated that if we were being sought out for municipal approval on a particularly large residential structure that might otherwise fall under these changes once they're in place, if they are in place, that we would try and have discussions with the applicant to encourage such things appropriate setbacks and landscaping and so forth. Have we had any municipal approvals since this motion that have, shall we say, raised eyebrows?
I apologize. I missed the first part. My computer went odd. So if you could just repeat it, Deputy Mayor Krillman.
So,
I had a while opening my camera. Sorry.
there we are. So the motion spoke to the desirability of having discussions with anyone seeking a municipal approval while this process is ongoing, and in circumstances where the size of the structure being proposed might ultimately fall under the provisions of the motion if implemented. So in other words, have we had anything come in to your attention that would raise alarms?
Not at this point, no.
So everything is fairly routine. No 25,000 square foot home applications, anything like that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's all.
Okay, so if there's nothing else on this list, we will proceed with item 2, the Blue Heron Drive on-street parking permit process. And Fred has provided us with his report. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Fred?
No, just that, of course, we're seeking direction from council and with some of the specifics, such as cost recovery and council's direction on how many passes, if we go with this, that would be reasonable for each household to receive.
Fred Nix?
Trying to find my mute button. Okay, and Fred Simpson and I did get some correspondence from Blue Heron residents who actually object to the idea of paying $25 for these permits. I've thought about it, and Fred, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I was trying to mull this over in my own mind. I don't have a problem with the idea of charging them $25 for these permits. We're trying to solve a problem for our residents, and we said, yeah, we can solve it. And by the way, we can also make some allowance for you if you have a house party or something and you need some extra permits so that your guests can park on the street. And I think they should bear the cost of that. But let me just float another idea by you, Council and Fred Simpson. No one is making these people buy permits. They don't have to. Those driveways on Blue Heron, I think, can easily hold 4 cars, maybe a bit more. So only the people who think on occasion they might need more than 4 parking spots would buy a permit. And even in that sense, they don't have to. You know, if you just suppose you're having a party for your kids on a Saturday during the no parking time, you've got neighbors. Hey, you know, can some of my guests park in your driveway? It's not the end of the world. The other thing, Fred, I read your report, and by the way, I think you've done an excellent job. Thank you. Suppose someone on Blue Heron does buy one of these permits, and it's sitting there. You know, they're only going to use it on occasion. Now, someone down the road wants to have a party. Oh, gee, they've only got 1 permit, right? Why can't the chap 2 houses down loan him his permit, and now that person could park 2 cars on the road for the party? In other words, these permits could have multiple users. There's nothing illegal about it. It's not increasing the number of residents who are having guests park on the road. So it just seems to me that this could be quite flexible, right? First of all, not everyone has to buy a permit. Secondly, those who do and they pay the $25 can easily loan that to a neighbor if that person's having a party or something. I'm just putting those thoughts out for your consideration, Council and Fred Simpson.
Yes, Sharon?
So back to basics about Blue Heron. Who owns that road allowance that goes into the park?
I think we do.
The town owns it?
Yes, Mark?
Yeah, through your worship, the town does own it.
So my question is, why do we have it open at all? The people on either side could buy half. This happens all over the place. There are cul-de-sacs all over Mono, and if a bomb goes off in the middle of the main road in front of them, I guess they're stuck there. The part about it being an exit for people at the end of a cul-de-sac doesn't ring true to me. It just doesn't make any sense. Close the damn thing. Let the people on either side buy it. If you talk to Bill Lidster, have they ever used it for any maintenance or anything else? Probably not, and they would have let you know. I'm all for closing it. Just get rid of it. They can have access by offer it to the neighbors on either side. They can have some kind of an understanding that people who live right there can walk in and walk through without parking anything. I just think we've gone way too far with this. I know Fred Simpson has spent a lot of time on it, but I think we're now charging people to park their cars on a municipal road. I can't get my head around that. It shouldn't cost the town anything, and it shouldn't cost the residents anything. And so people have to get used to it. But I'm just not ready to put the onus on our residents to handle all this. It just seems a simple thing to close the damn thing, put the thing up. There's no access, and the property there. We had to buy road allowances at cottages. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. In terms of doing a closure of that access point, is that something that CVC is going to want to consider? Because they've been used to having that as an access point, sort of like off Purple Hill. Yes, Mark?
It's certainly been part of the agreement, but I think it's came up last time, last council meeting, there was a request to reopen that access agreement. So that's certainly an opportunity. It's still going to leave the access point, I guess, through the Island Lake Family Trail for residents of Mono. But when that gets closed, there would be no access from this particular area other than that Purple Hill Park site, and that's a difficult site too. But it can certainly be done. You have the policies for closing up, road allowances or municipal lands. We've always done it. The cost would be borne by the people who would be receiving the benefit. In this case, the two adjacent landowners. So we've normally had a cost for the road allowance, and the survey costs and the legal costs have always been borne by the benefiting parties. So that's all in place.
Okay.
If council wants to declare this surplus and move on, you may want to get a full report, though, as to how it ties in with the agreement.
Okay. Fred, next.
Yeah, I mean, historically, it was put in there, it's my understanding, because originally that subdivision basically only had one entrance point on the first line. And so if something had happened to close the first line, it was kind of another way of getting out of that subdivision. But of course, now there's other ways with French Drive getting in and out of those subdivisions. But my fear, Councillor Martin, is that historically that has been a local access point for the people living in Island Lake subdivision to Island Lake Conservation Area. And I think closing it, yes, it does allow people to get into the conservation area through other means, but I would hesitate in doing that, at least before we consulted with the residents of the subdivision, because I think from their perspective, it's a very handy way to get into the conservation area. And if we closed it, I think we're going to anger some people.
Okay, John?
Well, if it's kept open, at a minimum, it should be signed residence entrance only, something like that. I think Sharon's suggestion is rather an elegant solution, in as much as if that is not an entrance, we don't have to worry about no parking, a no parking zone in that area. I still think we need to move forward with Fred's proposal for a pass, but a pass that residents from wherever in the town can avail themselves of, so that they can enjoy Mono Cliffs and other amenities that are now ringed by no parking zones. So I think we should pursue Sharon's idea, at least to find out what the local residents think. It's going to be a dilemma for many, but there are other ways of getting into Island Lake, one of which happens to be the official entrance where you pay a fee. And I still don't understand why the Conservation Authority is allowing such porous borders, given the fact that they're losing money every time somebody uses one of these porous entrances.
And I guess that the answer to that would be because of the management agreement between Orangeville, CVC, and Mono, that was part of the access allowed without our residents having to pay to use the trails. So we pay maintenance fees annually to assist CVC in maintaining those trails. So that's the reason why these access points have been improved, etc. But now it's gone, the pendulum has gone in another direction. So we need to rethink this and rework with the CVC. And I think after the last meeting with Bill Litster, he was very aware of our concerns, and he's having his own concerns within the park perimeter too. So Mark, did you have any comments?
Sorry, I didn't have anything to add, Your Worship.
Oh, okay, okay. So, yes, Sharon.
So it doesn't mean that that would be closed off to the guy who lives across the street from this entrance. If the people on either side decided that they wanted to purchase half the road allowance and we got that all worked out, I could speculate that they are neighbors and they would not have any problem with someone walking across the street. The problem is nobody walks from Oakville, and that's what we want to stop. We don't, at least I do. You know, they are not my people. I have no interest in them at all. And as far as all the accesses and entrances, I also think Bill wanted to have another look at all of that as well. That was my understanding from what he talked when he was with us last time.
Mark?
I think if you're going to close it, you're going to close it. You're not going to have someone else saying, okay, well, you can come in, but you can't come in.
Yeah, I get it.
You get into the fights very, very, very quickly that way. So I think if you're going to close it, fence it off, and you close it.
Excellent. I was just trying to mellow it out a bit.
Okay, so, but I am hearing from some members that the idea of having parking permits is still something that we need to discuss further. So I think what we've got right now is two issues. One, that we, do you want to turn it over to staff to look at the process of offering that? Do we want to turn it out to the residents and find out whether or not they're even interested in having this opportunity? Yes, Sharon?
Yeah, I think this is a really good idea to put it out to both of them. If the thought in their mind is that this could be closed, there might be a change. Also, the amount of money that it would be to have extra parking permits for your household. All of those come into play, and we probably need some input from the people who live right there, as well as staff looking at the possibility of closing this entrance and what that would entail. Thank you.
Okay, Fred?
Well, I would just point out that we have had input from the residents. If I'm not mistaken, Glenn White and Mark Train's petition, I think, had every household at that end of Blue Heron on it, and what they wanted was a no parking bylaw. They didn't ask for the entrance to be closed. I think many of them use it. Now, I could be mistaken, but I'm just saying we have had input from them, and this is what they've asked for. And the only difficulty was if we made it absolutely no parking, then on occasion, some of those residents would have problems. That's why Glenn White and I came up with this idea of having a pass for those residents. So, yeah, I mean, go and consult with them more if you want, but for the record, we have heard from them.
Okay, Sharon?
The option was never put in front of them to close it.
Okay, so I guess my concern about pursuing the discussion point of closing it, I think we need to go back to Bill Lidster and just review the existing agreement, make sure that we're not doing something that's going to jeopardize our current working relationship. Yes, John?
I was going to say, I think both approaches are not mutually exclusive.
Right.
We could proceed with the no parking bylaw. We could proceed with how to figure out the issue of a town pass, and at the same time talk to Bill about closing up that entrance into Island Lake. If it turns out that we close up the entrance into Island Lake, we can reverse ourselves on the no parking, because I don't think that if that entrance is no longer accessible, I don't think we have a parking problem. But in the meantime, I think we can deal with the parking problem.
Okay. So we need to provide direction to staff. Yes, Fred?
Yeah, I think I agree with John, because if we do just defer this, our next council meeting isn't until July 20th, and if we did something then, by the time we actually got no parking signs up, it would be the fall. So in other words, what we would be doing is leaving the residents of Blue Heron with a problem for the whole summer. I think we should go ahead, and my direction to staff, I mean, Fred Simpson, I think your report is great. I would agree with all of it. Let's go with the no parking. Let's go with the pass that costs $25. I wouldn't limit the number of passes, like 2 passes per household. I wouldn't limit it. I mean, if someone wanted to buy, well, okay, 10 passes would be a bit ridiculous, but let them decide if they want a pass, first of all, and if they want 2 passes or whatever, let them buy it. I would go ahead with this plan, and as John said, if Bill Lidster agrees and we decide we can close it, we can reverse ourselves on the no parking bylaw.
Okay.
Okay. So it looks like, yes, John?
I don't think we have a mover or a seconder yet, but I'd like to propose that we also erect a sign reading as follows: residents entrance only. Visitors use official entrance from Hurontario Street.
Yeah.
In other words, we're signing that entrance to discourage people other than local residents from using it.
Can I just ask a question, John?
Yep.
The word residence is going to cause some problem. We have an entrance for Mono residents on Hurontario North, and we don't just say the residents living around Mono Amaranth School. It's open to all Mono residents. If we put a sign up saying residents only, you're going to have maybe someone from Camilla coming down and saying, well,
No,
I'm a resident of Mono. This is another one of the entrances that I can use. I mean, we got to be a little careful with that. Do you mean only the people who live on Blue Heron Drive? Or do you mean the people who live in Island Lake subdivision? Or do you mean the people who live in Island Lake subdivision and the ones in Brookfield?
I'm open to an alternative, but I think the intent is that residents of the town, I don't think we can preclude somebody else from driving down there. But if they then choose to take their chances parking in a no parking zone, fair enough. But I think if you see that sign and you're from Oshawa, you know you're not a resident.
Right.
I'm open to another expression. But I think it has to be signed.
Okay, so are we in agreement that we should insert mono residence? Sharon?
Is that what, yeah, I'm in agreement with John to get a sign up. I know we seem to have been putting up a lot of signs lately, but I think that it's having the effect that we want. And I don't know, John, does it help to put up mono residents? Does it help to put up local residents? I mean, is there some way to appease Fred?
Does local work for you, Fred?
I'm not sure I need appeasing, or I'm not sure I'm the one to decide what works and what doesn't work. I'm just suggesting that if I lived in Brookfield and walked over there with my dog, which some Brookfield residents do because there's big lawns over there, the dog can run around on those big lawns, and I see the sign residents only, I'm going to say, well, I live across First Line in Brookfield, I'm a resident. I'm just saying that I think we need some clarity in terms of what we mean. If the word mono residence, and I don't really think anyone from Camilla would walk all the way down there, maybe mono residence would make it clear. That way Brookfield and Island Lake subdivision people can walk over there and walk into Island Lake Conservation Area, but someone from Oshawa can't.
Solved. Okay, so that amendment to the recommended motion. So did you get that, Fred Simpson?
I wouldn't mind just confirming what we have for the sign. Right now, I've got mono residents only. Visitors use official entrance from here, Ontario Street. Is that the intent?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and so the motion that we have written here is that we direct staff to implement a trial parking permit system as described in the clerk's report titled Blue Heron Drive On-Street Parking Permit dated June 17th, 2021, and that each household is entitled to be in the possession of how many permits at a time? I know Fred Nix said not to limit it, but
Just change the word to permits with a S on the end. And I think if the motion says we, as per the report by staff, Fred Simpson's report, we have to take out one clause in that report because he's put in there that these permits are not transferable, which I assume you mean by that, Fred Simpson, that if I live at 45 Blue Heron, I couldn't let my neighbor at 47 Blue Heron borrow the pass. I would say, why not? I mean, okay.
So actually, that wasn't my intention. I agree with you, Councillor Nix, that if I have, whatever, 3 or 4 permits and I want 5, I could ask my neighbor to borrow theirs. That was that if, when you sell, right, that, or you can't give that pass to, you know, whomever.
Okay.
Someone
I misunderstood. That's fine. I misunderstood that.
okay.
So, and your worship, maybe that whole phrase in that each household is entitled to be in possession of X number of permits, maybe that can just come out of the resolution if there is no maximum. Keeping in mind though, that doesn't mean if there's no limit and someone asks for 20, is willing to pay for 20, they're gonna get 20. If, because, you know, we've put no limit whatsoever on it.
And the town would make $500.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, so the proposed motion will strike that there's a cap on the number of permits per household and the addition of the sign being installed. So could I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Nix and seconded by?
I have a question.
Look, would you be willing to second the motion and then ask your question?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
Just curious as to what the intent would be if we are rolling out some kind of mono pass for use of residents elsewhere. Are we going to charge the same amount of money or less, or you know, I'm a little concerned about the dollar amount, frankly. Still
Yes,
less than the park.
So does that mean that I can buy a $25 pass and go and park on Blue Heron? Is that the possibility here?
You don't live there.
But John is saying, what about the other people in Mono? My understanding from what John has said is that other people from Mono can pay their $25 and they could go past there, park there.
I think the motion on the floor, I mean, I hear John's idea, but that's an extension of what the motion on the floor is about.
And does it have to be part of the motion that we are going to explore the possibility of closing that entrance, or is that separate and go to staff?
I don't know that we need a motion specifically. I think we can give direction to staff to investigate further and come back with some report. Mark, you had your hand up?
I was going to say, during your earlier discussions at public question period, you said you were going to deal with this issue. This is the only item on the agenda related to the parking. So I've been waiting to see where that was going to go, because I think if you're going to be permitting a similar permit process on, say, third line or second line for people to use Mono Cliffs, then I think it's, you know, you could have someone applying for Blue Heron to park up there. Why can't someone from second line apply to park down on their road? So I think those are all fair comments you're making, and they need to be considered in a holistic fashion, not on a small neighborhood fashion.
Thank you.
Okay, Fred the next.
Yeah, just this gets a bit complicated because we don't have a report, and we're thinking out loud as we go. I hear what John says, but he also had mentioned another idea, which I think in some ways I think we should explore, which is to have friends of Mono Cliffs Park or something. And again, how we define them or who they are, I don't know. And if that group had the opportunity to buy passes or something, I'm just a little worried I'm not sure I want to proceed, John, with the idea today that we would be selling parking passes for people to get into Mono Cliffs Park. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but maybe we need to do a bit more thinking about it. Let's today just deal with Blue Heron.
Yeah, I agree with you, Fred. I just was suggesting that in dealing with Blue Heron, we might be setting a precedent that we have difficulty with if we do a further expansion of the concept. You know, I think we should pursue the Friends of Mono Cliffs, and then that gives somebody the opportunity, for instance, to park up in the vicinity of the 25th Side Road entrance, as they historically have for the last 20 years, do their park monitoring while they're on a hike. I think this can go ahead, but I just don't want to set a precedent that then gets imposed in other circumstances that are not that are quite different than what we're dealing with on Blue Heron.
Okay. Fred?
John, I'm not worried about setting a precedent because we already have another precedent in front of us. We've allowed the two of the Bruce Trail clubs to get passes for their trail maintenance people, and we're not charging them for those passes. The simple rationale being, those people are actually doing some work for the community. You know, they're parking their car on the 25 side road and taking a weed whacker in there, or picking up garbage or whatever else they're doing on the trail. So, you know, I'm not, the idea that we're going to charge $25 for these permits does not mean forever that anyone who gets any type of permit is going to be charged $25, okay? Depends on the circumstances.
Okay. Mark?
As the resolution states, this is a trial parking permit process.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it may all be moot depending on where you go with closing this access in the long term. So, if council wishes to proceed with this, I think you should stress that this is a trial program and we're going to see how it works out. As far as the costs go, I think the $25 is very reasonable when you consider the staff time and the process that we're going to have to go through to administer this, and just the cost of passes alone. So I think if that's appropriate, it allows for the other concepts to be developed with the parks people regarding the Friends of Mono Cliffs, and you know, we can still deal with other requests and say, well, this is a trial and we're working on it. We're going to see where it ends up.
Okay. So with the resolution, then, if I could suggest, Fred Simpson, that we either put parentheses around trial or make it capital T trial or bold print so that it's clear. Okay.
I put quotes around the word trial parking permit system.
Okay. So, are we clear then with this resolution, our intent? Seeing no comments, then I'll pose the question. Is anyone opposed to this? Okay, so that's carried. So now, on to parking lot attendant contract. And again, Mr. Simpson, your report.
So as council knows, staff was directed to look into securing the personnel to be able to control the access to the Mono Cliffs, the Mono Community Center parking lot, because we didn't have the staff in-house. So I've gone ahead and done that through a contract. I can report that this last weekend just passed, the parking lot was left completely open as directed. So it wasn't left closed, and we never observed more than 30 cars at any given time in that parking lot over the weekend. Overall, the traffic is down significantly visiting Mono Cliffs Provincial Park at any given time. And we issued probably less than, certainly less than, I think, 15 tickets over the weekend.
Okay, Fred Nix?
I'm going to suggest, I was going to ask Fred about last weekend, that we simply drop this idea of having a parking lot attendant. First of all, we can't, I'm too cheap to afford what the cost that Fred Simpson has proposed here. I think that the rush is over. We've noticed it down on the south end on the Bruce Trail. There certainly still are people coming up here on the weekends to hike, but it's not nowhere like it was 4 weeks ago, okay? Hopefully, as the province reopens, this rush of people to Mono will die down. And I think we're already seeing that.
Okay, Sharon?
I did want to comment that those people who are parking at Mono Center to enter the park, the Mono Cliffs Park, are they're not paying for anything. I find that pretty annoying that if you park on the third line, you pay for parking, and at Mono Center, they're using it as a way to get out of having to pay, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, that's true. I think that it needs to be monitored through the next few weeks to see how things go, but perhaps we don't need full-time people there. And yeah, I think that's the best move. But everybody should be directed to the third line. That's the entrance to the park. And fine if you live in the hamlet and you walk in that way, that's none of anybody's business. That's why it was left that way.
Okay, John?
I'm with Fred on this. My sense is that the rush is over as well. The one thing that I think we have to be very cognizant of is that part of the issues arose due to our OPP and bylaw enforcement people trying to be helpful in directing individuals to park at the community center. That stopped. And as long as it doesn't start again or isn't now occurring, I think that parking lot can accommodate the tennis club and local users of the playground and so forth. I think this is a great idea if necessary, but not necessarily.
Okay, Fred's next.
I just want to temper something that Councillor Martin said. You're right. Some of those people are parking there and getting into Mono-Cliffs Park without having to pay. Our difficulty is that is also a trailhead for two Bruce Trail side trails, one of which leads right into the park. And, you know, a person parks their car and gets out and starts walking down either the Laidlaw or the Turnbull side trail. I mean, that's difficult because that is open and free. Yes, it goes into the park and it joins up with the main Bruce Trail, but I don't know how we would distinguish between legitimate Bruce Trail hikers who are using it as a trailhead and people who want to avoid paying a fee on the third line. That gets really difficult.
Okay. Sharon?
I'm not trying to police the people who are coming, but with signage, with knowledge, the people will at least understand that this is not parking for the Mono-Cliffs Park. If they end up that way by going through Bruce Trail, so be it. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, so I guess we are not going to enter into a contract for a parking lot attendant from the discussion. And so that motion is not required. Mr. Simpson, I have a motion in front of me to amend the bylaw 2012 being a bylaw to provide for the regulation of traffic in the town of Mono. Is this connected to the previous?
Yeah, so two things. Absolutely, I forgot to ensure that council passed that. If we're going to put a no parking zone on Blue Heron, we have to put a no parking zone on Blue Heron. So the bylaw needs to be amended. And council may still want to, well, we do need to clearly note that the parking lot attendant contract, council is directing that we don't enter that. I don't know, it probably won't get seconded, so I'm not sure if we just want to provide direction to staff.
Yeah, I think
Madam Mayor, why don't we
we just provide direction that we are not interested in entering into a contract. Yes, John?
I was going to suggest alternatively that we simply table the recommendation.
Okay.
So table it for an indefinite period of time?
Yeah.
Just don't put the motion on the floor.
Well, it never got there. Okay, so we do have to do the introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to amend bylaw 2000-12, being a bylaw to provide for the regulation of traffic in the town of Mono, that be signed by the mayor and the clerk of the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Creelman. And any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Okay, so now we are on to item 4, the NEC application from the Fung Roy Cook Institute. And so Mark, you had provided us with this memo.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, the memo. It's got your original resolution in it. The Fung Roy Cook has come back with a proposal that they will respect the maximum number of burials permitted under their 1980s permit system. And they're seeking council's, I guess, approval at this time that this could proceed to the NEC in terms of meeting the intent of the town's previous resolution. The town did put an arbitrary, well, not arbitrary, I think it was 1/3 or a quarter of the burial plots should be limited for columbarium use. However, what they're proposing at this time is they're going to cease casket burials and just move on to the columbariums on the property. So you'd have 39 columbariums, I believe, which would hold the maximum amount of whatever it is, 1,277 urns. So I think that it certainly meets the intent of the originally approved permit in terms of the number of burials allowed on the property. So you shouldn't see an increase in traffic, whether you had 1,575 casket burials or 1,575 urn burials. So they're looking to have this move to the NEC, and the NEC, I think, is looking for us just to kind of say yes or no at this point in time. The decision is still subject to a permit process, so if neighbors were still vehemently opposed to the 39 columbariums for the 1,575 plots, they would still have their opportunity to fight that through the development permit process.
Okay. Any questions regarding this? So seeing none, do we need a motion then?
Council has their resolution already in place at the NEC. I could write a letter to the Niagara Escarpment Commission and indicate that council is in agreement that that meets the intent of the council resolution.
Okay, so council members fine with that? Okay, so then yes, please, Mark, if you could
And we'll
do
just
that.
reflect that.
Okay. All right, so now we're on to section 6. The first item is fence bylaw exemption request, 307-552 Hockley Road. And Brad Simpson provided us with the report. So is there any follow-up comments, Fred?
No, I've got nothing to add other than to say that the applicants are here and may wish to speak personally to the application.
Okay, so welcome, and please go ahead if you'd like to ask anything or state anything that you're concerned about.
Thank you and good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My wife Michelle and I have been owners of this property since 2009. Today we're appearing before council to make our case for an exemption under Bylaw 2020-36, specifically relating to our above-ground decking and swimming pool. As part of our statement, we'll repeat some points from our letter of May 13th and the report completed in preparation for this meeting by Mr. Simpson. We believe these bear repeating because they formulate the basis of the exemption. By way of background, The exact date of the pool construction is unknown, but estimated to be mid-1990s based on equipment vintage, which means it has existed without a pool fence for likely more than 25 years. When we purchased the property in 2009, we were aware of significant repairs that would be required to the deck, so we contacted the town to inquire as to whether a pool fence was required and was advised that it was not due to the location of the property. At that time, the bylaw exempted the need for a fence given that the property was in a rural zone. Not long after, we completed renovations to the deck surface to repair rot and make it more maintainable, replacing all wood boards with manufactured wood, which was a significant investment of about $14,000. We did not alter the deck in any other way. The size, design, etc. remain exactly as they were on purchase. The main points we wish to address today are, up to 2011, the property was automatically exempt under Bylaw 1983-13 due to zoning. The new bylaw change replaced the zoning exemption with an exemption of property size of 2 acres or more. By definition, 2-acre properties would be outside residential zones where one would expect proximity to other properties, high traffic density, and therefore a higher propensity of danger, especially to children. Not long after having refurbished the entire pool deck at the expense we noted, we suddenly became non-compliant because the property is less than 2 acres. But nothing at all changed about our location. Our property did not suddenly become less safe. We are located well away from any subdivision and are surrounded by large properties and heavily forested areas. With that in mind, we believe an exemption is possible by applying the same logic as the intention of the 2-acre rule, since our property is still located well outside a residential zone and remains as safe as it always was. Finally, we would like to mention that after becoming aware in the fall of 2020, completely by accident, that the bylaws had changed, we immediately contacted the town through the website for advice. Therefore, we are coming about this exemption not as a result of an action by the town or a third party, but rather a request we are proactively making in good faith. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Nix. You're muted.
I found it. It always disappears. It goes below my screen and then I have to resurrect it. I have no problem with the request. I think that they've made an excellent case for having an exemption from the bylaw. There's only, that I'm aware of, there's only 2 children anywhere near where they live. They're across the road from you, Ken and Michelle, and a little bit to the west. And I don't even think they're allowed onto Hockley Road, so you don't have to worry about them coming over. It's quite isolated. It would be very highly unlikely for any person who wasn't a resident of that house to even know there's a swimming pool back in there. So I'm in favor of granting the exemption.
Okay, thank you. Sharon?
Yeah, I am as well. I just like to throw that out there to the shorts. Are there insurance implications here at all, or is that, are you okay?
So prior to our finding out about the change in bylaw, the only conversation we had with insurance about the pool was at the time of purchase. So, part of the reason we reached out to the town was that if there was a non-compliance, then we would feel obligated to advise our insurance. That's why we're being proactive about this. We want to make sure we're on side. So there could be issues, yes.
Okay. John, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm good with it.
Okay, thank you. All right, then thank you very much, Ken and Michelle. We have a motion, Council, that we need to pass, that Council for the Town of Mono grants a site-specific variance to Bylaw 2020-36, a bylaw to provide for regulating and governing fences for 307552 Hockley Road with the following conditions. Number one, the existing pool is exempt from section 5.1, the requirement to erect a pool fence around the existing pool. Two, if a fence is erected, it shall conform to all provisions of the bylaw 2020-36 or any other town of Mono bylaw regulating fences in a general and pool fences in particular, and shall be subject to any provisions required by the Niagara Escarpment Control. And three, if the pool is replaced by a new pool, notwithstanding regular maintenance or upgrades to the existing pool, the newly constructed pool shall conform to all provisions of the bylaw 2020-36 or any other town of Mono bylaw regulating fences in general and pool fences in particular, and shall be subject to any provisions required by the Niagara Escarpment Control. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any discussion? Seeing none, is anyone opposed? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you for your time. We'll drop now.
Okay, so we have a planning report from Mr. Trotman regarding the Mono Center Brewing Company site plan. So David, I'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. So this report is a follow-up from the report that came to Council in November of 2020 regarding the zoning amendment that would permit an on-farm diversified microbrewery operation by the applicants Zachary Gamage and Paul Ratton. And this is the typical follow-up. It was subject as a special zoning amendment, subject to site plan control. That's what's in front of council. These are the standard agreements we bring with respect to the layout, configuration of design elements, building and site that is part and parcel of the site plan control review process. The key matter here really is, of course, to have council review the draft implementing bylaw that would allow our good clerk and mayor to go ahead and enter into this a final agreement and execute that agreement with the applicants, which is attachment A to the report, and the draft agreement, which is attachment B. And I've outlined comments that have been made and submitted as part of this site plan review from various agencies. Key ones from our good engineers, Burnside, that are itemized in the chart, as well as other agencies.
Okay. Yes, Fred Nix?
Trying to move that way.
You're on mute still?
Sorry. Anyway, in the comments, Dave, one of the commenting agencies is WSP, and I couldn't think who that is.
So I put all of the comments that were received. I fussed about whether I would attach them, link them, and I thought, well, it's the first microbrewing operation in Mono. I thought I'm going to do a chart, which is what you've got. It's a mouthful there, but it's really not that difficult. It's ordered according to the agencies that submitted. WSP, I think, busy days as they are, I did note some of the comments there, particularly at the end about that a report needs to be done and so forth to ensure and demonstrate that it's compliant with the official plan. I think what's happened, I wasn't really able to get hold of Mr. Benner at the time. He's busy doing growth stuff with the Dufferin County official plan, but I think it's a bit of a miscue, a misstep. But they're verbatim comments, and I think what's happened is he simply reiterated some of the comments he had from their review under the zoning amendment, which was the fundamental scrutiny of the use itself. We're at a site plan stage.
Who is he? Who is WSP?
Sure. So WSP is the overarching or lead planning consultant acting on behalf of Dufferin County Planning Department. So as you may know, their good director of planning, Daryl Keeney, retired back in April. Their coordinator left, and so they are overseeing the planning department comments and applications for Dufferin County.
Well, the only reason I asked is it caught my attention. He claims that this property is in a wellhead protection zone, which it's not.
Yes, I saw that. It's not.
It is.
So as I said, I put the comment in verbatim. I didn't want to abridge them in any way because I didn't want to be seen as sort of changing them. That is the comment they had there. I've had this discussion with Mr. Gamage as well, and I said I think we just need to brush them aside. They're at this point in time, they're technical comments that were requested for site plan, and they're a miscue, I think, or some of them were a bit of a miscue.
Okay, other than that question, I have absolutely no problem with going ahead with this. I think it's.
I was going to leave them out, Councillor Nix, but I thought it wouldn't be right necessarily to not have a fulsome set of comments that we did get. So, but I give you the nod for catching up on that. I wondered if we were going to get that question, and sure enough, you saw it, and I was ready to answer it. I'm not worried about those comments at all.
I just wanted to demonstrate to you that I do read your reports. I must admit in this case, when I got down to all the drawings and stuff, my eyes were glazing over by the time I finished.
Okay, Sharon.
Well, I didn't use my eagle eyes. I just read it, and I've been expecting it for a while, and I think it's a wonderful spot for this. And right across from the farm store where I had a lovely dinner when we were doing those things. And yeah, I think it fits really well. I'll be pleased to come and visit.
Okay. John, did you have a comment?
Just apart from the fact that I couldn't finish reading the entire report because the computer blew up on me. So I didn't get very far into it, but I had one question. At one stage, there was some question about the fire chief signing off on this, and I think originally it was forwarded to Town of Orangeville, where this particular part of the town is covered by the Rosemont District Fire Board. Was that issue cleared up?
It was. There was a bit of a delay from the FPO in Orangeville getting back to let me know that it wasn't his territory, but I did have some dialogue with Mr. Gamage, and we got it sorted out through Mr. Mike BYLAWS because I wasn't sure who was doing FPO fire prevention officer duties there. He said, well, that's my second hat I wear, and that matter was sorted out between Fire Chief BYLAWS, our engineer, Gord Feniak, and myself. And further to that point, the applicants have made the decision to install, now I forget the volumetric amount, Zach, but I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 plus liter on-site container for water for fire attenuation purposes.
Why not just connect the vats of beer?
It would be too good to waste, I can assure you.
Since we have Zach on the line, I'm wondering if he has any questions or comments about where we go from here, and clearing up anything in the report that needs tweaking.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the floor. I'm thrilled to hear some of the positive support behind this. And I do appreciate, I know it was a tight timeline in getting us onto this council meeting, but it's been an arduous process, almost 2 years old here. So I do appreciate the diligence in allowing us to be on the agenda today. I think there was just a couple of small things that we needed to do, but Mr. Trotman has assured me that we'll be able to take care of those as we move forward. And I think Dave, if you correct me if I'm wrong, I think the next plan would be is us to sit down and just to finalize the agreement, barring its approval today or movement from council.
That's essentially correct. So, I mean, there are some details we need to scrutinize. I think I referenced the 2,400 square foot building originally per the plan. I think that's changed to 2,800 square feet, but
Yes.
I mean, that's a minor matter in my view. It's all relevant and compliant with the bylaw, so I don't have a problem with that. I guess I was wondering whether council had any more questions or concerns or issues or comments on the overall layout. But if not, that's fine too.
Yes, Fred? No, you're fine. All right. So I guess, thank you, Zach, for attending and helping us go through this item. So if there's no further questions regarding the item, then we have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to enter into a site plan control agreement with Zachary Gamage, substantially in the form as attached as Schedule B to the bylaw, and that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Creelman. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for attending, Zach.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on to item 3, consent, common ownership agreement. 1588574 Ontario Inc. and 2347647 Ontario Inc. Wallace. And so again, Mr. Trotman.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. This was a consent application from back in January this year for lot boundary adjustment up on 25th Side Road east of Airport Road, owned by the Wallace brothers. There's 2 numbered companies, but it's Christopher Wallace. And this satisfies, I believe it's standard condition number 6 in the notice of decision. Committee of Adjustment prepared and submitted for approval of this lot boundary adjustment. That's basically all it is. It's a standard matter of having council review and provide a decision on the bylaw that would allow clerk and mayor to implement the common ownership agreement. And that's simply to make sure that the parcel to be severed actually merges with its abutting and adjoining parcel.
Okay, Councillor Nix.
Yeah, this was getting really late at night by the time I read that. I understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to sever one piece of property and make it join another. Where I got lost was, what's the common ownership? I'm sorry, I couldn't wrap my head around that. What are they commonly owning?
It makes sure that the parcel that gets severed becomes commonly owned, if you will, with the abutting parcel to be, that is beside it. So that I believe that there was a situation years ago, to give you some context, where a severed parcel that was to merge with its adjoining parcel somehow ended up being sold separately on the open market. So this was something that the town solicitor of the day, I can't remember if it was Mr. Wilk or Miss Spruill, one of the two, came up with this legal instrument, a common ownership agreement that forces it forces the piece to be severed, to actually merge.
So the common is the person who's getting this lot. That's the common owner now of both lots. Is that how it's interpreted?
That's my understanding. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Mono's been doing this for a little while now. Not every municipality does this, by the way. It's usually just a condition that said severed parcel shall merge. So this gives the whole process some extra teeth, legal teeth.
Because the danger is, if we did the severance and didn't have common ownership, then bang, 2 minutes after the severance was granted, someone has a brand new lot, which they could then sell.
Potentially.
Okay. Mark?
And Dave's quite right. This is dealing with a particular issue we did run into. We generally only use it where either the retained or the severed portion can be developed.
like as the size that is of a developable nature. We did have a situation where a particular lot was approved as a lot addition, and it went through our standard process, and the registry office allowed, under the direction of 2 lawyers, to say that, oh no, this is a separate lot, and let it go. So this is a formal way to ensure that a merged agreement is on title, so that we don't run into that problem down the road.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so is there anything else on this item? Okay, I just need 2 counselors to come back on screen before we can pass the motion.
Sharon, John.
Yeah, are you back with
I'm
us, John?
conserving bandwidth. I'm getting slow network connection
Okay.
messages.
Okay, and I'm not sure what happened to Sharon, but at any rate, we have a motion that we introduce and give necessary readings to a bylaw to enter into a consent common ownership agreement with Christopher Wallace, 1588574 Ontario Inc. and 2347647 Ontario Inc. Part Lot 26, Concession 7, east of Huron, Ontario Street, substantially in the form as attached as Schedule A to the bylaw, that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Creelman and seconded by Nix. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Okay, so now we're on to item 4, the fleet fuel system and tank replacement tender. And Mike Dunmore. There he is.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So we released the RFP for the fuel management system and tanks and removals of the old system. It was split into 3 sections. Part A was generally the install and full procurement of the new system. Part B and C were generally put out as provisionals in some of the decommissioning. That the intention was that the Public Works would carry some of the work under their own budget for the removals of these, but we sought the prices from the contractors. As you can see from that chart, they were varied in pricing and not necessarily as clear as what the Public Works Department expected. We reviewed all the 5 tenders that were received with regard to the procurement bylaw, and it did. Part A is generally within or just above budget that we submitted to for the 2021 approval, and the market sure has changed this year, as we've been finding with all of our projects. And Council, I'm seeking to proceed with this after discussions with the treasurer. We're not sure what the horizon looks like for pricing. It's caught us off guard so much this year, and we're not sure it's going to go down. And we think that the company that was vetted and we're recommending for approval, and the prices are within the current market values. So in speaking with the treasurer, we were planning and hoping with council approval to utilize the modernization grant as part of this, and with the full expectation that Part A will be the 100% cost, and that Public Works would work with the company to reduce the provisional and the decommission estimates that were provided. And should council have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, Fred next.
Mike, I couldn't follow your math. Your recommendation is that we accept the Comco bid for $461,000. If I go back to their bid of 294 and add parts A and B, I get 408,000. So what am I missing?
So it should be the 294.
Plus 113,689 adds up to 408,263. But your recommendation is we accept their bid of 461,000.
So the
So I'm lost.
So the prices that were provided are exclusive of HST?
Okay, so the 461 is just the 408 with HST added.
So in the resolution, I say HST inclusive in the resolution, and 408 plus the 13% gets you to 461,337.
Got it. Just checking up on you, Mike.
Thanks. I had my calculator out too, so.
Okay, any other questions of Mike? Seeing none, we have a motion that council for the town of Mono accept the unit bid price of $461,337.19, HST inclusive, from Comco Canada from Barrie, Ontario, for the fleet fuel system and tank replacement RFP. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And so the next one is the report on solar speed sign data. And so, Mike, did you want to take us through this too?
So we completed, as per council's request from the town hall meeting, we completed a couple weeks in one direction and another week in the other direction. Compiled the data and put it together for police services, which occurred last June 16th, and I'm not sure, I haven't had a chance to read the minutes of that meeting. But in general, we've provided the information to council, and as you'll note, there's no recommendation in this report, so it's really for discussion, and we can go from there.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? John?
A number of things. We did, in fact, have a discussion at the Police Services Board regarding the results of the measurements. And it is interesting that the degree to which there isn't a problem, and yet there is a problem in as much as some of the high readings are quite high. The Police Services Board further talked about being able to access this equipment or have the ability to divert this equipment to various parts of the town that have been identified to us through the OPP and local residents as problem areas. And I don't know that we have a mechanism or a protocol to do that, but it's felt that it's fairly important that we be able to nimbly utilize the existing equipment. An example would be on the Hockley Road, where we've had a delegation that is concerned about speeding. I know that it has been used on the Hockley Road in the past, and it is a county road, but it doesn't preclude us from using the equipment. I think more to the point, and this will start a discussion, there is another device out there called the Black Cat. And in the past, the OPP has been able to find a Black Cat device for use in the town of Mono, but it appears that they are no longer able to do that. The Black Cat is more sophisticated than the device that Mike currently has. It gives, for instance, date and time stamped data on speeding. The information it generates is extraordinarily helpful to the OPP in determining how to deploy their resources effectively. It develops for them patterns of traffic behavior that they can then respond to. You will be receiving shortly a motion from the Police Services Board to respectfully request that we budget for the purchase of a black cat unit to be utilized by the OPP. They would have the discretion, subject to discussion with the Police Service Board, where to deploy it within the town. And I'd further note that Town of Orangeville has recently purchased 2 black cats for the use of the OPP within the boundaries of the Town of Orangeville.
Brad?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. First of all, John, if I'm not mistaken, the black cat can also measure speeds in both directions, can't it?
I believe so, yes.
The other thing I was going to ask you is, and I'm getting old, my memory isn't good, but I think it was this spring, the county put one of those speed signs on the Hockley Road. Now, I don't know if it's the same as ours. I mean, it's much, much larger, but I don't know if you can get data out of it. It shows the speed of a car going on the road. If it did collect data, could you ask the Director of Public Works for the county as to whether or not the town of Mono could have access to that data? It was only up for a few days, but I suspect we will be amazed at some of the readings we got off that sign. It was put at approximately the Hockley Road and 4th line. If they did collect data, I would really like it. And I think the Police Services Board should look at it too. But so could you make that request for me?
I will, and that's excellent. The other way the county has to, and I think that we do as well, collect data are the double cables that are sometimes installed on the road surface. I'm gonna see what I can get from the county in terms of their measurements, and some of this may actually be online. I'm not positive.
Okay. So, anything else on this? Seeing nothing. Yes, Mike?
Your Worship, so if council's in agreement, I would like to respond to the resident that asked for this and provide, not to mention a copy of this report, but that the 85% of the traffic is doing an average of under the speed limit, and that there would be no recommendation from council to lower the speed limit and the unposted zone remain. Or if council has a different view, I think the resident deserves, will request and deserve a response on this town hall item.
Yep. No, I think that's a good idea. Thank you. If you can forward that through. Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Okay, so now we're on to item 6, the CTC Source Protection Committee nomination, and Fred Simpson has circulated a report on this. So Fred, did you have anything else?
I had an opportunity to have a short conversation with the clerk of Amaranth, who has no official word yet from her council as to whether Mr. Garrett is seeking another term or not. Well, she suspects that if he is, Amaranth Council would probably be supportive. I put this out to council only because I think the timelines are fairly tight over the summertime for a single nomination from all of the parties involved. So with the next council meeting being July, if council is interested in nominating someone, then this would be an opportunity for them to say it, not necessarily precluding that the municipalities will still get together and attempt to have a sole nominee.
Okay, Fred Nix.
Yeah, I think Chris is probably an excellent choice just because of his technical knowledge. I believe he's a hydrogeologist. And we did work with him on the task force that developed the idea of a joint water management agreement. And I respect his opinion on the subject. So if Amaranth wants to nominate him and he wants to serve, I think Mono should just agree to it. Having said that, I know Chris, he must be pretty busy. He has his own company and he's now on the Nottawasaga Source Protection Committee. So that puts him on 2 different committees. I had phoned Fred Simpson to find out whether I would qualify. And it's a bit tenuous, to be honest. I mean, I don't own property in the CTC area and I don't rent or have a business in that area. So I'm not sure I would qualify, other than that, I think Fred Simpson agreed. I apparently am employed by the town of Mono as a councillor, in which case, Mark Early, that brings up another subject. If I am an employee of the town, I'd like to ask what the minimum wage in Ontario is right now. It's a joke, Mark.
Okay, so any further comments? How we would like to proceed with this?
Well, I think we should wait till we hear from Amaranth. And I mean, I know we've only got one more council meeting before we have to get a name in, but if Chris is going to apply again, I'm all for him.
Okay, so we'll just hold off until the July meeting and see what's happened in the interim.
In the
Okay.
meantime, Fred, I think you need to go to the labor board.
Okay, so now we're on to Schedule A. Sharon, did you have anything on Schedule A? You need to put your mic on.
I'm not ready yet. Sorry.
Okay,
So move along.
okay. Fred, do you have anything on Schedule A?
I got to look back at my notes. Now I've lost them. I don't actually, I can't recall checking my notes. No, I
I'm
don't. have
happy to
anything.
go and let Fred regroup.
Okay.
No, I'm fine. Nothing.
Okay, John?
Okay. Just to report, we had an excellent discussion with the Hockley Road residents at the Police Services Board, and I'm happy to report that this is an agenda item for the Infrastructure Committee meeting at County on Thursday. And I will be advancing various things at that meeting that have a particular county opportunity. I am sorely disappointed with the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry's response to the mayor's letter with regard to Aggregate Resource Act. That's item number 12. I would only note that happily he's been moved out of that ministry. And I would commend the town to the motion of Dufferin County, item number 15, having to do with residential schools. And I don't know whether we need a motion to adopt that as our sentiment as well, but I wouldn't mind considering that. And those are my items on.
Okay, so, yes, Sharon?
So those were the only two things I was going to speak to after I got to my page there. So there you go. It's been covered. I've been covered.
You've been covered, okay. So then as far as the resolution, item 15, do we want to pass a motion supporting that resolution?
I would so move.
Okay, and seconded by Sharon. And so Fred Simpson, you're okay with that? And is there anything else, Sharon, that you had? You said you had two things, or they've already been covered? Okay. Fred, next, did you find anything? Nothing? Okay. So we have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Creelman. I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Okay, so reports from staff and members of council. And we'll start with Les.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Nothing new to report other than, as Mike mentioned in his presentation to council regarding the fuel tank project, at the next council meeting, I will be bringing a budget amendment approving the additional costs to come from the provincial grant we received.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions of Les? Yes, Fred?
When are we getting the HR report?
We're currently working on that at the moment. I'm assuming it would come just before our budget time. I'm expecting September.
Okay. Yes,
Unless Mark has something to add.
I was thinking Councillor Nix was going to ask whether he was going to be included.
Well, there is a special category for that, yes.
Okay. So any other questions for Les? Okay, thanks, Les.
Okay, thank you.
Kim?
Good morning, Council. Just a couple things and let you know that now that we're into step 1 and coming up to step 2, the usage at the parks, we've definitely seen an increase, especially at Menora, dealing with some situations where we do have individuals who are running businesses such as fitness instructors, yoga instructors, photographers. I've had reports about a number of different businesses running their programs or advertising for their programs to take place at our parks without any type of permit. So I'm attempting to get in touch with these people to remind them that it's in contravention of our park bylaw, that you're not allowed to run business opportunities out of our parks without a permit from the town. So just wanting to let you know that I have been told, and I'm trying to follow up with as many of these individuals as I can catch up with. And I just wanted to also kind of put it out there as well so that it is in the public domain that it is in contravention to the parks bylaw that you cannot run a business out of our parks without some type of permit from us. Other thing is good news. I heard from one of the internet providers in Mono finally, and they have gone back and looked at Menora as a possible site for providing internet for us, upgraded internet, and it looks like we're going to be able to proceed with that. I have yet to speak with our IT manager in regards to it, but it sounded very, very positive yesterday when I met with them, and that's pretty exciting news considering that the majority of our renters are looking for a form of high-speed internet out there. And I'll be following up with council as soon as I find out more in that regard. And last but not least, soccer registration is going great. We have opened it up to include 7 and 8-year-olds. And at this point, we have enough to make 2 teams in that category. And we have 60 other registrations between the 3 to 6-year-olds. So registration does not close until Thursday at noon. I'm hoping that we hit the magic number of 80, and I'm pretty excited that we are going to be going ahead. And I think everyone got my email that Mono-Amaranth Public School will be the location for soccer this year. The Upper Grand School Board did send me an email late last week letting me know that they were going to take on our application and let us use the field. So that's great news.
Good. Questions of Kim, Fred?
refresh my memory. Where are we with the outdoor washroom at Menorah?
Oh, we just had the, we're in process. I just had the septic inspected out there by a certified septic inspector, and we did pass the inspection. So we are now at the stage of contacting the CVC and getting a drawing done up of the washroom and getting permits from the CVC and the county building department.
Is there any possibility that that washroom will be functional by this winter?
Yes.
Okay. My second question is, when does, in the province's reopening, when will we know whether or not Mono-Nordic Ski Club, particularly for school children and the other programs we run, like Jackrabbits, can use the downstairs of the pavilion this winter? Do we know when that decision will be made?
No, right now the parameters around step 2 and step 3 are rather vague. It's something that we at PRO are trying to encourage the province to give us a little more direction or a little more information on, but we're just kind of going with the flow as far as what we've got right now. And at this point, we don't know whether or not we're going to be able to proceed with anything like that.
So I'll just wait a while until I renew my coaching license, I guess. It's a joke. I'll renew it.
I would renew mine for sure.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks, Kim. Oh, yes. Your mic. Try again. Okay. Nothing. It's not coming through.
Can't hear you, Sharon. My lip reading isn't too good.
No. Something happened. How about you log off and log back in again? Okay. Okay. So now Dave Trotman.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Not too much other than ongoing projects, really, as an update for council. I guess the key thing, I'm just looking at my notes here as I'm speaking. So, I mean, the key thing coming up looming is for June 30th, our next Committee of Adjustment meeting, and that will be the proposed hotel and medical center minor variance application on Manor Park Drive, and a proposed consent of 12 Coles Crescent to create a new industrial lot between it and what is now 10 Coles Crescent.
Okay. And have we had anything back regarding the cement batching concrete place?
I don't believe, well, Mr. Lamerdine did make a call to Premier Concrete and just asked them to kindly, be mindful of outdoor, albeit permitted, outdoor activities on site, because particularly in the, would be the rear yard anyway, in terms of ambient noise. I'll follow up with him on that. I do believe we got comments from that particular resident across the street with respect to this present consent application that's coming forward on June 30th.
Yeah. Okay, Fred, did you have a question of David?
Yeah, where are we on Violet Hill? The garage, the
I think you asked me that last time, and I had to deftly dance around that because given my report and the situation at hand, I'm not intimately involved from the council's perspective.
Right. So that's why Mark is
to that.
Mark?
Through you, Your Worship, the matter has been I guess they've been looking at schedules between the appellants and the town. We're looking at either the last week of, or either the second or the third week of August for mediation. If you recall, when Mr. Wilker was here, it was suggested to go to mediation. So right now, I've booked off a couple of blocks in my diary in the second and third weeks of August, but I don't have confirmation of when it will occur in August.
Okay. Any other, yes, John?
Yes, Dave, you and I have had back and forth on this, and all members of council have received emails on this issue of the airsoft activity going on the 30th Side Road. There seems to be some confusion as to whether or not this requires a development permit from the NEC, or whether a simple letter of permission is acceptable. And I thank you for your sending us a link to the NEC guidance on this. But my question is really basic. Has the NEC disclosed to you whether or not they are going to require a permit or not? And the reason I ask that question is that I can think of a whole lot of things over the past 30 years that have required a permit at usually great expense and aggravation to the property owner. They go through the process in good faith. They persevere. They expend an enormous amount of money to comply. And now we have this permission letter. I have no idea whether or not a permission letter has within it conditions, or whether those conditions are enforceable, whether those permission letters involve the degree of community input that a development permit allows. But the residents in the vicinity of this activity are of the view that this should be a development permit, that they should have their opportunity to comment on it. We've all been recipients of sound files, and as previously raised, I find it passing strange that somebody who is facing the prospect of a development permit is permitted to continue with the activity without having the permit actually approved. I would no more build a house that requires a development permit and then apply for that permit than fly to the moon. So my question is, are we pushing the NEC, or have we had any indication from the NEC that they are requiring a development permit? And do we have an answer to the question, should they not be ceasing the activity until they get that development permit?
I have not seen any more recent email from Mr. Toast, who is replacing Mr. McDonald as enforcement officer NEC, that the cessation of the use will be required while a DPA, that is a development permit application, is made, which is being requested by NEC to the NEC. So I'm going to have to follow up with him on that. At this point, I have nothing more presently that gives you that kind of clarity. So per the email I did send out to you and council, the question of this permissibility, is it a recreational use as of right? I don't know. Is it an incidental use as of right? I don't know. And then the whole premise of and that's a discussion that's a clarity I have to get from him, because I guess the concern would be, weighing the balance here is that if NEC were to say cease such use, and it turned out under scrutiny by NEC that it is one of those two, there could be some ramifications. I'm not suggesting, we don't know. I need to get an update from him on that, and I simply haven't heard back yet at this point. I do know, though, he did attend, or he did speak with the owner and required them to submit the DPA application.
Right. So it's a DPA for sure. It's not simply a letter of permission.
That's my understanding at this point in time.
I see Mark has got his hand up. I have just a supplementary if I can.
Yeah, I sent, through your worship, I sent an email out from their enforcement officer. I think it was last Tuesday. It might have been this Tuesday. Dates are a blur. But it was basically from Kevin Toast, and he has said, provided they get approval for a development permit, they would then cease any compliance issues. So it did say that the landowner was advised to make the application and that that's required. What they're not saying is that this type of use would require a plan amendment. It says that it may be permitted under their plan and go through the development permit process, put on whatever conditions are necessary to control it. And or all parties or any party could appeal the decision to a hearing. Residents.
Well, I think that's infinitely fair. I mean, I don't see a plan amendment here. I see a requirement for a development permit application, and it's either approved or it's not, and the residents have an opportunity to object. We have an opportunity to comment. I think, as I said, it's passing strange that the activity continues as recently as this weekend when you're trying to get approval for something. Now, refresh my memory. Did Mr. Singer continue ski activity, water skiing activity while his permit application was in process? Because that's an activity.
Yes, it was. And I think there was a lot of evidence as to whether that did or did not occur.
Okay.
And
If I were the okay, I don't expect you to, but I raised the analogy because I think it's appropriate that it is an activity, and most people play by the rules. They do not construct the house. They don't put the barn up. They don't do the earth moving or whatever requires a development permit until they get the development permit. And I think we need some clarity from the NEC on whether or not that's appropriate or not, or whether or not that is a factor in the NEC's ultimate decision as to whether a permit issues.
And I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, Deputy Mayor, other than to say it certainly provides the residents with the ammunition to go back to the NEC during the permit process as to the impacts of the property. Not encouraging the use by any means.
Okay. So, David, did you have anything else?
No, not at this point. Thank you, Marianne.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Michael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To start off, we installed our 2 speed humps. I never realized what kind of monster I would unleash. 95% of the people in that area are happy with it. The other percentage can't believe that we didn't include them in their location drops. So with the amount of calls we've received, my goal for the 2022 budget is 2 things: to come up with an action plan town-wide that may or a process for residents to apply for them. And I'm still weighing this. We are letting residents know this is a trial install. Installing the speed hump on Bayberry did create a monster on the other side of the subdivision because everybody's driving that way now. So we had a little bit of money left over, so I will be trying to get one in there as quick as possible. And it'll form part of a plan for council to review in 2021, and whether we end up with the rubber installations or we look at the full-time installation. I am pointing the residents to the pros and cons report I did in 2012. prior to them submitting a email application, but generally people want more and people want more. So I'll come back with something in the 2022 budget. Solar speed signs. I'm going to try and put together a policy for council on the usage, the deliverables, the expectation of what those were. If council will recall, we bought these as traffic calming devices, and they weren't really meant to provide the detailed data that we provided today, nor was staffing time. And quite frankly, the ones that we do have are a little cumbersome for quick removal and reset up. They were more meant for stationary, long-term. We looked at French Drive, it was out there for 3 months. We looked at here Ontario into CTP, it was out there for 3 months. But now we're getting more requests for those in combination with the speed humps. So try to get back with a policy and also put an action plan together for the Black Cat, or I have quotes on a different item for council to. I'll work with the deputy mayor on what that would look like for 2022 and how Mono staff's involvement would be or would not be required with respect to these. One thing I did want to talk about was the road. Currently we have 5 road closure signs up around the parks with respect to the executive order. We pulled one of them down at 2nd and Mono Center Road today. Our agricultural community is starting to take hay off, as you're well aware of, and I wondered if council wanted to think about what our long-term intention of those were. We're moving a few today because of calcium and maintenance gravel as well, but we'll get them back up for this weekend. Should council or the mayor decide that they're still needed. Garbage trucks, a little bit of a headache, but they seem to be understanding them now. So that's, and further to that, our no parking signs for the provincial park, first line, the extension north of Cannings Falls. Those will either be swapped out with some bigger ones at appropriate places, and the full extent of the bylaw amendment for no parking around the park and first line will be installed. Any remainder signs that I do have left over will go in the temporary no parking area down by the CBC entrance, and should there be enough, we'll look at Blue Heron, but I think I'm into another order. As council's aware, I am running over budget on that account, and I will continue to do what council needs. So we completed there was a gas main that was in our storm system on Riverside Drive. That was fixed this week. We've been working about 2 or 3 years with on-bridge gas to get that gas main out of our storm sewer. So there was some traffic disruption on Riverside last week. Capital gravel going a lot slower than what we expected. Our contractor, the drivers that were brokered for this were not quite 100% aware of Mono's topographic issues, and we've had to resort to some utilization of our own fleet, and we've had some minimal trucks for that, so it's a little slower. But right now the calcium are following the fresh gravel. All the calcium's done, save and except the capital gravel.
And Mike?
Yes.
Just while you're on the drivers the contractor uses, one of them just about took out one of our residents last week on the 3rd line. He's not only not familiar with the topography, he was driving much too fast around a corner there. Anyway, I just passed that on to you. If you want to let the contractor know, we're not entirely happy with his drivers.
Yeah, if you can get back to us immediately when that stuff occurs, then we can center out who it was and drill down on that, and we're happy to pass those on for sure. We're trying to not apply pressure to them to create the problem, but we would like this to get done. I got a fleet of gentlemen who would like vacation soon, so. We got some water and capital issues with respect to Cardinal Woods Pump House. We're looking at our high lift pumps and pressure pumps right now, and we're also ironing out the issue we had a couple weeks ago where we had no water that morning to ensure that does not happen again. Bridge 10 and 11, we got some firm dates from our contractors, and we will be providing letters to the residents and website.
Can we have those dates, particularly for the bridge on the second line?
I saw the email this morning, but I did not read it, so I don't know the dates, but I'll be more than happy to provide that by day's end to council, and it will go out on the website and and Facebook and so forth. We will resend that to the residents, but it will become upcoming. We have multiple requests right now for surplus land, and I know the Clerk's Department and Mark and I are trying to sit down. We have south of Mono Center 8, the 5th line, and the 15th side road that was closed off for Pan Am, and we apparently we're trying to get residents to call the OPP when these congregation of pickup trucks and Jeeps congregate on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and trying to get the residents to call when that happens. And that area seems to be a hot spot right now for off-roading. With respect to the no parking requests on Mono Center Road 8 and the extended version, that request has gone to the county, and I've yet to hear back from the county, and I expect that soon. And it may be a slight modification of what council wanted, but I'll provide that as soon as I get it. And off the top of my head, that's about all I can think of right now.
Okay, Mike, I had discussed with Fred Simpson regarding the lifting the emergency closure on roads. And Fred had suggested to open them up after Canada Day. And I wasn't sure if that was still in play, because if everything seems to be calming, so to speak, then we need to look at what is necessary to maintain control over the excess vehicles. So I'm just wondering if we can have a discussion as to whether there are some of the roads that should be opened and some remain closed.
I'm open for discussion. What I don't want to get into is moving them, and so right now I'm sort of reacting based on the farmer and their requirements and whether there's an alternate route. But generally, I think the real impedance was the one at Mono Center. If anybody trying to go north on the 2nd can't make that turn, but the other ones are on straightaways and generally seem to be okay. And I'm happy to move them as the phone calls come in, and I'm also happy to do what council wants me to do with the long-term look. I do, and there has been discussions with respect to sort of an action plan for spring and fall, similar to what happened this year. And the fall leaf viewing has predominantly been our historical problem, and perhaps we can have a discussion about the fall when we get closer to it. But with respect to the signs, I'm sort of at the call of council here. Or our bylaw enforcement to see whether they think that the no parking areas are reducing the numbers. I don't think it'll stop it. But if the numbers are being reduced by the no parking signs, which I noted will be installed by Friday, then I would leave the removal of the signs for council consideration if the impact has decreased.
Okay, so yes, John?
It was the head of council, the mayor's decision to make the declaration that resulted in the road closures. So it wasn't really a council decision, and I take it will be your decision, Laura, to rescind the order. I just want the record to show that I was not involved in the decision with regard to the third line south of Dufferin County Road number 8. And I take no position one way or the other on when that road closure should be lifted.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, do you have any comment?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So the sign to close the road, the second line is closed? Is that, the second line from the hamlet is closed?
Local traffic only, and that
Okay.
was one of the 6 locations that we have closed right now. They're not closed, they're half closed, I guess, for lack of better words. You're notified that if you're not local traffic, and I think the bylaw enforcement they're not stopping vehicles that are driving through there. I think
That are just going up to turn left and leave.
it allowed bylaw enforcement to, in the absence of the no parking signs, it allowed bylaw enforcement to provide tickets to those that decided to stop and park and leave their vehicle. So they're still showing closed. It's the intent of council, or the intent of the order is still there, and it has been for a while now. So.
Okay, but someone just going to turn left and head out to Highway 10 or whatever, they're still going to be okay.
Yeah, garbage and local traffic, and even non-local traffic, as long as they don't park in a van and leave their vehicle and head into the provincial park, they will be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be fine.
Great.
Okay, John?
Having said that, I have heard a report that a notable resident of Mono was in fact cited for driving on a closed road, presumably on their way to Shelburne, using the shortest possible route. I don't know whether this is an urban myth, a apocryphal tale, but I think some people may be caught up by overzealous OPP officers.
Fred Dix, do you have any comments? Okay. So, well, my concern is that the order did serve its purpose at the time, but I'm looking at that things seem to have calmed down, and I would like to lift the order, but I want to make sure that I've got all of the information in terms of potential problems that might arise. But I think the way it is now, even to open them up, lift the order before Canada Day, is, to me, would be the right thing to do, because I mean, what we perceive to be an emergency situation has dissipated, so I don't want to overuse the opportunity. So,
Your worship, for your consideration, I'm okay moving them for, if you wanted to hold tight till after the Canada Day weekend, we can field the phone calls from the farmers and deal with them. Some people have been moving them by themselves already, so I'm assuming I hope those are farmers that are moving them, and not somebody trying to get themselves a new trailer with the brakes on. But But I'm okay if your worship, you want to leave. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not trying to push the situation at all, and that we can, it's manageable right now, and I'm okay with any timeline you choose.
Okay. Well, I'm leading towards lifting it now. So if I don't hear any strong objections from staff and the other two members of council that can comment, then I think we should do that. Or I should do that. So, yes, Fred.
I'm fine with that. Hopefully, we're right that the surge has died down and it served its purpose. So,
Yeah. Okay, so Fred Simpson, you're okay to make the paperwork up or whatever we have to do?
Yeah, if you want it lifted, I take it effective as soon as we can publish the paperwork, I can send that out today.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so any questions of Mike? Yes, John.
I don't have a question of Mike, but I think Mike may want to stick around for my report.
Okay. Okay, so now we are at Fred Simpson. He disappeared. There he is.
I'm just trying to catch up. I'm taking notes.
Okay, sorry.
I have nothing further to report.
Okay, any questions of Fred? Thank you. Mark?
Your worship, just one item, but it's a big one. The senior staff and myself met with the general managers of the CAs last Friday regarding the implementation of all these changes to the Conservation Authority's legislation. So it was quite an interesting discussion. I think that the conservation authorities were very frank with us as to how this looks like it's going to unfold. So just so council is aware, the fiscal changes that are being requested through the legislation are required to be implemented January 2023. Problem with that is that the regulations have not even yet been finalized, so no one really knows exactly what processes are going to be followed in terms of what responsibilities the town's going to have, what responsibilities the CAs are going to have. There's going to be two significant financial impacts through, to the municipalities, but through the Conservation Authority budget. So the two of them being the provincial water quality and testing program, which has previously been funded by the province, at least in part, and the source water protection process that was put in place following the Harris regime, which, as you all know, it represents a huge part of the conservation authorities now. That is no longer going to be funded by the province either. Up to now it has been. So those financial obligations are going to have to be met either by the CAs or through their budgets through the town. And those will be mandatory requirements. As you're aware, I've been encouraging a single agreement, an implementation or a memorandum of understanding with all three conservation authorities. And I think that's probably a pipe dream after listening to all three CAs speak during our meeting. And that's really due to the complexity of services between the conservation authorities. For instance, Toronto Region CA offers a lot more technical and engineering services than does the Nottawasaga. And that's just due to size and staffing. The other is the different mentalities that are going to exist between the municipalities within the CAs, where you've got, I don't know what the number is in Nottawasaga, whether it's 18, 21. There's going to be a lot of difference between what services are going to be wanted to be provided by the municipalities, from the NVCA versus, those that don't want the service. So it's going to be quite an issue moving forward. But we did agree to, we'll continue to meet once we see the regulations and they can be better assessed. One of the things that the CAs are looking for is a pushback on that January 2023 date, but I do not see it happening. I think that this current government is committed to putting this in place. It's part of their support group that wants, I think, to hamstring the CAs to a degree, and I think that's what we're going to be faced with. My question was, will a provincial election change anything before the implementation date? And the general thinking was that no, the writing will be on the wall by then. I know that's not the full report you're looking for, Councillor Nix, but there will be more forthcoming. But just to let you know, we have started down the road of trying to sort through what impacts this legislation is going to have, and I think it will be quite significant.
Brett?
And that's my report, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, wow. When you had your meeting, the issues that would concern me are, what if places like the town of Orangeville or the city of Barrie say to conservation authorities, who's making that noise? Sharon?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was blinded by the light. Sorry.
we don't want forestry services, so we're not going to pay for them, right? And town of Mono, yeah, we probably want forestry services because conservation authorities do a good job, but when you think of services like that, even though they plant the trees in Mono, you're benefiting the urban residents as well. And I'm just worried that we're going to have all kinds of bun fights breaking out among municipalities on issues like that. Education, things that are not considered core services. I'm just worried we're opening up a season of bun fights. Was that discussed at all by the three conservation authorities when you had your meeting?
Yes, very frankly, actually. I think we certainly raised it. It's not lost on the conservation authorities either. Another one, just to get your head around, is the Island Lake Conservation Area and how that's all going to play out with just Orangeville and Mono, for instance, having direct impact. What's that mean for Peel Region and all the users down there, and what do they want to do with those properties? So, but yeah, that whole issue, especially as it relates to the Nottawasaga, we raised because we recognize that what we do in the headwaters to benefit stream condition directly affects and is a positive for, the Wasaga beaches of the world at the tail end of the stream. So yeah, that was discussed, that the whole issue of what will be a checkbox or almost a menu is, well, yes, we want tree planting, check, and we want, we want stream restoration, check, and you're going to have other municipalities saying no, no, no. So I think what's going to happen is this is going to morph from being a discussion with all three CAs to being a discussion within the CAs. So right now, they've met with the Conservation Authority general managers are meeting with all their individual municipalities. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a round table with all of the CAs and or mayors as to how this is all going to unfold. And I'm speaking more within the NVCA because that's going to be a much more complicated issue. Reach and appeal really covers off the majority of the CBC.
Couldn't some careful writing sort of write a kind of, here's the mandatory services we provide, and then sort of a general thing about how education benefits us all and tree planting benefits us all, and sort of, and so that all municipalities within a conservation authority, they don't get to pick and choose. There's one sort of general statement about the benefit of all these optional services, and therefore we all pay for them. I don't know how you'd craft something like that, Mark, but it seems to me that would be a road to pursue.
I think if it would be a great idea if we could bring it to fruition. I think part of the problem is that part of the impetus that has led to Premier Ford implementing these changes is a lot of those municipalities are sitting on some of these conservation authorities, and it's exactly what they wanted, was to get rid of some of these services provided by the CAs that they feel are unnecessary. So I don't think you're ever going to see that type of universal agreement.
Okay, any other questions of Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Fred, do you have anything to report? No? Sharon? Sharon?
Yep, I'm here. I've had a couple of calls about this would be directed to Dave Trotman, I guess, about the hotel at the corner of Monroe Road and Kingfisher, the southeast corner. And apparently people in Watermark got letters talking about this. It's all very vague, but to my mind, it seems like a bit of a jumping the gun here, but maybe they're just feeling the waters and see what kind of opposition there's going to be with the residents there. The people that I talk to are well aware that that's commercial, zone commercial. But other than that, where are we? It sounded like a boutique hotel at one point.
This was, this is the application for Hilton Hampton Hotel. It's a franchisee. This is common these days, much like many commercial businesses. The corporate doesn't necessarily own and operate every location. Mm-hmm. And the applicant, Mr. Diwali, has made an application for minor variance. He's bought the land next to Royal Cheval. He did that some year, well, two years ago about, and has brought forward an application for minor variance, which is going June 30th, to add a floor, to make it 4. That's common, and I'll give you some context. That's a common theme these days, about 4. I mean, I guess in cities they can be larger or taller, but generally they're about a 4 minimum floor level. And as a result, consideration for reduced parking based on the zoning bylaw standards. So it waited a month or more because I wanted to get better information from the applicant's consultants, particularly on the parking study. We did get some further information. This has had a good review by our town engineers and their transportation folks. And it was deferred a good month or more. And to have that information brought forward, they wanted to get forward in April, May. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We need more information. We now have that to some measure. And they're anxious to get in front of committee. So in front of the committee, they will go. And as part of the circulation, which is a 60-meter prescribed area of abutting landowners, we added everyone in Watermark to be circulated so that there was a level playing field in terms of the notice. And what we've done as well is in that notice provided a fillable link for all those folks to make their comments should they choose to do so. And we've had several comments come through. Councillor Martin, I can tell you, I've taken a couple of calls as well. Some of those comments, I have to say, focused on, we don't want a hotel here. And that will be vetted out at the meeting because it is a permitted use. The others, or most of the others, did understand it's a permissible use. It's about the height and, dare I say, more importantly, about the parking ratio. And they've understood that and they've made their comments accordingly. I have been capturing those comments in a report, which I am getting out today, hopefully today, by courier to our good Committee of Adjustment members. And there's a chart in my planning report that itemizes those comments from folks in Kingfisher. So I'm aware that there has been comments come forward. There is also, as per my request, a signboard on the property. It's pretty front and center on Monroe Park. advising those would be well beyond 16 meters who may walk by, drive by to know there's a meeting coming up.
Yeah.
And of course, all the applicants and the documents, the application of the documents are on the active planning applications webpage. So we will, to finish here, we will probably have a few folks from Watermark attend the meeting, not unexpected, and make their comments in front of Committee of Adjustment. There will also be the applicant's parking study consultant in attendance. There's going to be at least 1 or 2 members from Hilton Corporate in attendance per my request. The applicant himself, Mr. DeWally, will be there, and their planning consultant, MHBC, will also be in attendance.
Okay. Sharon, did you have something else?
Just a comment about the sign. People have to get out of their car and go and walk up to it. It's not really meant for people to drive by and have a look. That's one thing. The other thing is, do we have any, what else have we got that's 4-story in Mono? And is there any issue with fire services?
So there are aspects to this proposal, should it be approved by committee, that would be dealt with as through site plan review and control.
Okay.
We do have pretty fulsome comments from our engineer that addresses matters such as stormwater management, potable water, the sanitary system on site, and so forth, in the comments they provided for this Committee of Adjustment application. But the current application before Committee of Adjustment is about the additional height from 3 stories to 4, and the parking, or the parking ratio. There's several studies on the web page that allude to both the height of the building, such as shadow impacts, and also the parking study. So it's got to go through committee, and committee will have their deliberations and make a decision based on what we have in front of us so far. There are some concerns amongst staff, to be sure. My report reflects that. And those same concerns are reflected in the letter. It's been revised a couple of times based on information we've had from them a couple of times, also on the part of our engineers, Burnside. And also, I may say, too, our good Director of Public Works and our Director of Recreation. Those comments are all embedded in my planning report.
Thank you. Mark?
Your Worship, just from a due process perspective here, this is a minor variance to our bylaws. They are permitted to make it, and we're taking them through the process. And I think that at this point in time, you may wish to cease further discussion on it until the committee's had a chance to see it, review it, and make a decision. And at that point, you can decide whether you wish to appeal the matter further or allow a committee decision to stand. I think that's kind of the process we're in right now. It's not a decision of council. It's a decision by the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you for that. Just one further question for David. I've received 3 emails in the last day. Do you want me to forward them through to you? I've been forwarding them to Fred Simpson at this moment.
Fred's been very helpful, I have to say, on a number of fronts with reports recently. We've been busy, but no, you can forward them to me. I have got, as I say, I do have a chart in my report, but I've got to get this out today. So yes, please send them now. There may be folks I've already dealt with, I don't know, but until I get them, and if not, I can include them in my chart. I assume you mean from Watermark.
Yes. So
Yeah.
my question is that I know you're getting the agenda out today, but I know that there are going to be continuous emails coming in. So do you want them forwarded through to you regardless?
Please, Susan is on holiday as of Thursday, so this is why we're getting the agenda out a bit sooner. Normally we would have another week. And yeah, please send them off to me, email them to me. I'm simply, anything beyond today, I'm simply going to have to compile and have in my back pocket, so to speak, in front of committee. And we'll get them forward to committee as well, but they won't, if if I don't have them in the next, dare I say, hour or so, they're not going to make my report. But that doesn't mean they can't be in front of committee
Right.
for the 30th. But we did say in our notice that went up to Watermark, in fact, all surrounding owners, give us your comments in due time. You can't, please don't send them the night before of the meeting. That's a bit too late to scramble and sort of have committee consider them. So most folks in Watermark have been pretty good. There may be more coming in, but I've had quite a few, well, a few so far anyway, and I've been able to put in my report.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
No, David addressed what I was going to comment on.
Okay, no, that's great.
I will say that the fillable form that Susan set up is very helpful. It's fillable. They go to that link and they come back to us in fillable form, which has been very, very helpful.
Well, that's
And
good.
expedient, I might say, as well.
Okay.
So,
Sharon?
Well, yes, all this information helps me when I run into some of these people that are in Watermark, and it helps me answer their questions. Thank you.
okay.
All right then. So, did you have anything else, Sharon? No? And Fred, did you have anything? I can't remember if I asked you. No? Okay. John?
Yes, I have two items. One is good news, and that is that we heard at the Police Services Board that our POA tickets, Part 1 tickets and Part 3 citations or summonses are way up over this time last year. And last year wasn't a bad year, but it augurs well in terms of speaking to the level of enforcement, as well as potential fine revenue if and when the provincial courts get up and running properly. Apropos of that, we have a POA Board of Management meeting on Thursday, and I'll report at the next council meeting as to how that goes and try and provide some specifics as to the number of citations that have been currently handed out. But needless to say, Larry Makowski has been very, very busy. Any questions about that?
Yeah, Fred?
Just on that, John, 4 days ago, we drove to Collingwood for a birthday, so kept our social distance. And on Airport Road, between Hockley Road and Highway 89, there was not one OPP car with its flashing lights stopping a speeder, but when I went over the hill and down the next thing, there was a second OPP cruiser with its flashing lights off on stopping a speeder. So we had two OPP officers on duty on Airport Road acting independently, and they both had speeders when we went by.
Excellent.
You probably could have had a third one, you know. My second item, and excuse me, Mark, if I can ask that you recuse yourself on this. It's an item that you have in the past, and I just need to give council a quick report.
You're
Mark, go
on
ahead.
mute.
Can't hear you.
Did you want me just to leave the meeting given where we are in the given where we are? I don't think I'll be required coming back. And that way it's cleaner.
I'm happy to raise this at whatever point facilitates that, but
I think we're there now. I think you're just you and the
Mark-
mayor that are
Yeah.
before.
Even,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
See you later. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
So on the agenda for the Infrastructure Roads Committee on Thursday, we have a delegation on behalf of Mr. Clark, aka Smokies. The delegate is an individual who will be known to Laura, Sean Milliken, who is now being his agent for Mr. Clark. It is anticipated that he will be requesting that the county make permanent a temporary construction entrance onto the County Road 8 that has been used to facilitate the construction of the structure that is there. I just raise this. I'm not looking for direction unless people feel obliged to give me direction. But I think it's fairly clear that that was applied for as a temporary construction entrance, not to be a permanent entrance onto a county road. It does not conform necessarily to the requirements for a permanent entrance onto a county road. We're simply hearing Mr. Milliken out. I'm guessing at what he is going to tell us. And it's also noteworthy that the paving has gone on both in front of the structure and as well out to the limits of the Huron Ontario Street entrance, which, by the way, was the culvert on that entrance was a requested exception to our normal culvert size in anticipation of that being the only entrance into that property. So it will be very interesting as to Mr. Milliken's delegation, and it will give us an opportunity to ask what is going on in there that requires a permanent entrance. I am really looking forward to Thursday.
Yes, Sharon?
Is there any, can you anticipate that they want to close the entrance on your Ontario and only have one entrance, or I'm just, throwing it out there?
Well, let's put it this way. The county's policy says that if you're in a situation where you have the choice of an entrance onto a county road or a local road, the local road is the one that you use, okay?
Yeah.
So right there, okay, right there, it's plain, and it's also plain from the standpoint that he did, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, he did apply for an oversized culvert in anticipation of that being the primary entrance to that property. He's also paved straight out to the road. He has very, very carefully not done so on the approach to the County Road 8. He's paved to the lot line, and the rest of it is gravel. But and there's been a lot of work gone on site that suggests that this is all permanent. And there's also an NVCA requirement that he plants certain trees in places where the only thing growing right now is asphalt.
So just a small correction there, John. So that was a very short culvert on here, Ontario, and he applied for a entrance permit where we allotted him, that resident, the standard size length culvert. And they are appropriate for farm, field, commercial.
Thank you. I stand corrected on that. I thought it was something over and above the usual.
It's good for farm, commercial, and singular residential.
And motorbikes.
And motorbikes.
Just a little bit about process. So he made the application to the county, I think some 18 months ago prior to construction commencing, and it was granted, reasonably so, with the anticipation that two things would occur once June 11th came and went. Number one, the removal of the temporary entrance. Number two, the removal of a second entrance that is closer to the intersection with Huron, Ontario, neither of which has occurred. The position of the county is that it's now something that goes to the county council by way of the infrastructure committee. County staff is taking the position that they don't have the authority to grant an exception, that it now becomes basically a decision of county council.
Okay, something to look forward to.
I hope you can tune in, Laura. This will be really interesting.
And I'm sure it will.
And you remember Sean probably.
No, I don't.
Okay. And Sean's a former county employee, but nice,
Oh, okay.
nice guy.
Okay.
Anyways, there we are, and that's the update. And I don't think a decision will be made on Thursday. I think a lot of questions will be asked.
Okay. All right. I got a call from a resident in Watermark complaining about the different Anglers Hunters Club and the noise. He wanted to have a nap and he couldn't. And he thinks it's absolutely atrocious what's going on there and that it's allowed to continue. And I am not 100% sure where we were at, because I know there was the people to the west of the club had their petition with us about the noise attenuation and how it did the absolute same thing, but just going in another direction. So does any staff remember where we were at with the getting clarification on noise monitoring or anything like that?
I can speak, well, in terms of current operations, I honestly can't recall what last comments or deliberations or dialogue we had with the club. What I can tell you is that they're interested in, I guess, improving, from whatever that may mean, improving the structure on the site and looking at noise attenuation further. So that would be through a site plan review application, which is sort of a formulative stage at this point in time.
So, yeah, they were coming back to us because they were, their application was talking about adding ranges.
They want to add a few more slots, but at the same time, provide, I don't think there's any noise attenuation material in the existing shed there at all, or whatever facility they've got. Whereas the new one, as is proposed, would have noise attenuation material. And there's also other devices apparently they're looking at downrange to also mitigate noise.
Right.
It's at a formula stage at this point in time. I haven't really turned my mind to it, Mary Ryan. I will in the forthcoming weeks. That's what I have for you at this point.
No, that's good. Just because we were getting complaints that they were allowed to operate when everything was in provincial shutdown, lockdown, whatever. But other than that, we haven't heard anything more from the club itself. So I assume that they'll be able to operate with the reduced numbers on site now that lockdown's over anyway, in terms of
that. I'm not sure about that. I can't speak to that, but I mean, they are entertaining changes. I mean, I'll be careful about saying enhancements, depends on which perspective you're looking at this from, but changes on site and further noise material mitigations as part of the design of what would be a new shed, shooting stance or shooting position shed, if you want to call it that, or building. And one of them, just as an aside, one of them is to make it accessible, handicap accessible as well.
Of course.
Sharon?
So we haven't had any heads up about them applying for a building permit to build on. I think it ends up being about 16 slots, 16 things. I'm sorry about the guy who was napping, but we've had it, it's been pretty quiet over there.
Yeah.
Then, but as soon as it starts up again, I'm sure that we will hear about this again. I thought that everybody in Watermark was made aware of the fact that they were within a certain distance of shooting ranges. And I think that was brought up to us by, oh my goodness, I can't remember. I can't remember things but anyway, what was brought up was the type of gun that was being used has changed. And so where we have been used to a certain amount of noise, we are going to have more noise because of these guns that repeat.
Yeah, the rapid fire.
The rapid fire, yes.
So, okay, well, just to let everybody know that I got those calls. So, now, yes, John.
Well, I was just going to comment that in the submissions that we received, and I think Joe Wilson was one of the objectors and a longstanding member of that club. We heard various things such as the original intent was to properly cite firearms in advance of hunting season. And then we heard that all of a sudden there is handgun practice there. And this seems to be a shifting target, pardon my pun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like so many things these days. So it just will depend on what regulations exist and what needs to be looked at and petitioned against, I guess. Okay, so are there any notices of motion? Seeing none then, is there anything else of business that needs to be brought up? Okay, well, we will close off then. That we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Mono in session 14-2021 held on the 22nd of June 2021, that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. Anyone opposed? That's carried. And our next meeting is Fred Simpson. What's the date for our next meeting?
July 20.
July 20?
That's correct.
Okay, and it's a day meeting. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn at 12:04 p.m. Could I have a mover? Moved by Crewman and seconded by Nix. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and have a good July 1st. Okay, bye.